I'm Levi,
And I'm Brandon.
and this is Next Gen Sales Training.
So you wanted to get into car sales, and I think it would be beneficial to have at least an idea of what the car sales business is and what you need to know going into an interview at a car dealership. Levi and I both have been in the car sales business for quite a while now. 10 years in between us. And I think it would be good for everybody just to have an idea of like what brought you to the car business and sets up for the interview. But Levi, what brought you to your first car sales interview?
Yeah, so I grew up a car guy. That was my first thing. Was I came into it for the cars. I was working on my own stuff. I knew cars in and out, and I was coming out of college, and I just kind of needed a bridge job, and I thought it might be fun.
And now, so much longer, you're still in the business. I was at a factory making car doors for Ford and Lincoln, and I talked a lot. Everybody said I had a knack for talking, and I've been in sales before, just never car sales, but it just kind of spur of the moment thing. I was looking on Indeed, scrolling through, and I seen the big ad, which you always see. It's like make up to $200,000 a year, and I'm like, well, that'd be awesome. So I applied, went to the interview, and the rest is history. But I've been in it for quite a while now. What do you think was, I guess, the number one thing you went into the interview and you're like, I need to know this, or just a way of preparing for the interview?
One thing that I did that I think I spent too much time on is I spent a lot of time learning the manufacturer. I think when you're getting into car sales, a lot of people don't realize that it's more about the way you present and the way you talk than it really is having all the knowledge in the world. So I spent a lot of time just learning about the manufacturer that I was going into at the time.
Yeah, and I think that's a common occurrence that you have where you think you need to know everything possible about what you're selling, but at this point, you're just getting a job.
Right.
So that's really all you need to know is how am I going to get hired by the people that are sitting down in front of me interviewing me?
And don't get me wrong, knowing that stuff, it shows that you care.
Yeah.
And it shows that you're putting some effort into yourself. So knowing a little bit would not be bad. I think that's also an important point too.
Yeah, I would agree. I would even argue it's more important to know about the auto group that you're applying for than it is the manufacturer you're applying for. Because at the end of the day, the auto group is the one that you're going to be representing more than you're representing the manufacturer. So doing at least a little bit of research on how big is the dealership. How long has it been in business? Is it just a single store? Do they have 300 stores? But going into a little bit of depth in your research on who you're going to be working for, not just the manufacturer side, but the auto group.
The next biggest thing before your interview is just your presentation, the way you look. I think that's from when you're rolling up to the dealership and you're getting out of the car, everyone's judging you. A salesman's going to come out and up you, and he's going to have an opinion right away, and it will weigh on the sales manager that's interviewing. That's going to weigh on his decision.
Yeah, if you don't think that sales manager is going to ask the opinion of every person that you came in contact with walking in that door, then you're sadly mistaken.
Chris, what would you say if a guy walked in for an interview without a shirt on? And I hired him. What would you say?
He must have had on some really nice pants.
100%, 10,000% agree with show up dressed for the job. So, like right now, and we dress like this particularly for that. So dress to impress. Don't show up in jeans. That's a huge red flag. Don't show up in tennis shoes. It's a huge red flag. What other clothing, I guess, attire wise?
And it's tough because you can maybe jeans and a polo is your nicest thing you have.
Yeah.
I think almost as important as the outfit and how fancy it is the fit. Don't come in
100%,
super baggy stuff. Don't come in your dad's clothes. Maybe put down that perfect white shirt that's an XXL at Goodwill if that's kind of where you're at, where you're starting from, and pick up the blue one that fits you and makes you look good, presents you well, and make sure it's clean.
My whole first suit came from Goodwill, and it did not fit at all. I wore it one time, and one of the vets told me, he's like, "Hey, that doesn't look good," and he was just bluntly honest about it, and I never wore it again. I actually took it back to Goodwill. I agree again. Completely agree with that. The fit is almost more important than what the attire is. And let's be honest, like, what brought you to the business to begin with? I mean, most of the time it's money. So if you're lacking in money, it's going to be hard to have a full just wardrobe of really, really nice clothes, or you would expect that. I'm not speaking for everybody. I know it was the case for me.
And I think a big thing is pulling up. I mean, wash your car.
Yeah.
Like, that's simple for me. I always, I never pick up a girl without washing the truck first, So I'd say wash your car, and if your car's honestly, because we're all starting from somewhere.
Yeah.
If your car's honestly bad enough, paint and everything like that, park it around the block and walk up. Be your first presentation, what you have control of.
Yeah.
You can't control that. You can only afford the $500 car. You'll get there.
I've hired people that have done that exact thing. They parked around the corner and walked up, and then after they've worked there for a couple of months, they tell me that they did that. It's like, well, I didn't have the most presentable car, and I don't want you to have a certain opinion of me, so I parked it around the corner and I walked up. I was like, that's honestly, it's not a bad idea. It's something. There's little things that you don't think about like that, but I think that makes a big impact long term.
Yeah, and for my first sales job, I was driving a super loud, obnoxious, like the most immature Mustang, and I knew how that presented.
Yeah.
Especially coming into the business at the age I did, so young. I actually, even though I thought it was a nice car, all my friends thought it was a nice car at the time, I parked that around the corner because it was loud and obnoxious, and I didn't think it would present well for myself and the brand that I was trying to present, because it's always your brand, right?
Yeah.
The brand is you, and it starts from when you say hello.
Yeah, that's so. I guess my biggest thing going into an interview is do some research. Number one, on the auto group and who you're about to work for, but do some research on what a salesperson is. Kind of get them an idea of what the car business is about, what you think you're going to be doing day to day, and that, I guess, brings me to my next point: have questions ready. If you have no inkling of an idea of what the car business is, make sure to ask, because I know selling things is selling things no matter what the product is that you're pushing, but have some questions to ask that are educated. Like, what do you guys expect to see growth-wise for the auto group or for this store specifically? Are they new to the market? What does a day in the life look like? And they should be able to answer those questions, but any, I guess, solid sales manager is going to be brutally honest about it. Like, car business is long hours. What do you think?
Yeah, I think your two best questions when you're coming in is you can kind of put your sales manager back in your position, put them on an interview.
Yeah.
And it'll probably catch them off guard if you've never been in the car business, is how many units is your store putting out a month? What is your top guy averaging?
Make sure to know what that means.
Yeah.
if you ask what they're averaging, just make sure to have an idea of what that means, because that's a little bit more in depth. In my personal opinion, not to overstep, but that's knowing how many cars a month they sell. You can eyeball how many salespeople they've got on the floor, so you've got a general idea of, like, are you working with some top performers? How long have those guys been there, and how's the store producing consistently? Not like, what's your highest month ever, because you don't look for the outliers. Look what a consistent line of work is. Now, not to say that you can't create your own consistency in the car business. I think ask what an average guy does. Ask what a top guy does. What does a bottom guy do? Just to have a general amount of information on what you're walking into. If you have a store that's selling 40 cars a month and they have 5 guys on the floor, that could be bad news, because they're not selling a whole lot unless the pay structure is set up for it. Going into my first car sales interview, I thought that I had to be a little bit more reserved, humble, like I'm not just chasing the money. I'll be completely honest, anybody I've ever hired, I expect them to say, like, I'm here for the money. Actually,
this is a good point that I want to bring up, because since I started interviewing, I remember in my interview, I feel like I got this question right, so I ask this question every time. But how much do you expect to make in the car business? Is unlike that question in the car business is different than any other industry, because you make what you earn in the car business. All the salespeople want to be on the same pay plan. So for me, what I answered is, well, I saw that you can make $100,000 a year, so that's what I was kind of expecting for myself.
Yeah.
You know, I think the best answer is I'm going to get out what I put in, and I know the potential, and I want to make $100,000 this year or more.
And that's absolutely possible. Don't for a second think that you can't get the hang of selling cars and make six figures in your first year. It's 1,000% possible. Now it's going to be a grind, 100%, but it's 100% possible. I've seen it. I see it every single year. You have people that are coming into the business and they just catch on, and it's just being a people person.
Well, I watched a gal sell 22 cars in her first month and make 13 grand. First time ever selling. It was first month.
It's wild.
Yeah.
So I remember when I first started in the car business. I guess short story about me. We went to this sales training, and they went around the room, and because we were already hired. But we went around the room and they asked, "What's your goal for the year? What do you want to make in a year? What do you want your salary to be?" I guess, and and I said, 45,000 a year, and so the guy looks at me in the room full of just hired salespeople and says, "You're an astronaut," and I was somewhat offended because I didn't know what it meant. So I asked, "So what do you mean by I'm an astronaut?" He goes, "You're a car salesman today. You'll be a broker tomorrow. You may be an astronaut a year from now, but you won't stay in the car business." And I took it personally, but that's 100% right. Your expectation, it has to be so much higher than what you actually think.
Yeah. If your sales manager asks you that in the interview, in a car business, that's not a setup question so they can underpay you like in other industries.
Yep.
It's a setup question to test what you feel like your self-worth is. And I think a biggest thing is good car salespeople always have high self-worth.
Yeah.
They see themselves on high esteem in a kind of an egotistical way.
Yeah.
But it's just the way the business is.
I mean, it's sales. If you're not confident, then you can't push anything.
Yeah,
Whether you're selling cars or windows, it doesn't matter.
And that's a really good next point too, is just being confident, being open posture, smiling, like always be smiling. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. And again, that's from stepping out of the car, shaking hands with the first guy, open, smiling, hands out, not in your pockets, don't cross your arms, stuff like that.
So with along with the confidence side of things, so pay attention to everybody you come in contact with when you're going into your interview. We're talking about prepping for the interview, but this is as soon as you pull up, see who greets you, see how they're dressed, see how they're acting. What are the expectations that are set for that store? That way you know what you're getting into. I've watched people come in for interviews, and I've seen who they've come in contact with. I was like, I wonder if they did that correctly. I wonder if they did that right. And then what impression are you leaving on the interviewee? So as an interviewee, just pay attention. See how the manager's dressed. How do they approach you? Are they ready for the interview? Like, how prepared are they to do all of what they need to do in order to hire an excellent sales rep?
I know we're a little long-winded here, but if you take anything from this, there's 3 points I'd like to go with. It's attitude, appearance, and ask the right questions.
Attitude, just be confident. Go into it with 100% confidence with the sales manager that you're interviewing with or whoever you're interviewing with. And appearance, if your car is not good, park it around the corner, walk up, be on time, and dress for the part as well as you can. If you've only got jeans and a polo, roll with that. But make sure you shave up, look good, smile, and make eye contact. And lastly, ask the right questions.
Yeah, ask the right questions. You know, how many cars they're selling, you know, and know what you're kind of talking about, and know about the auto group, not the manufacturer.
Thanks for watching, guys. Again, this is Next Gen Sales Training, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.